season, both out of the transfer portal, and they were able to keep guys like Ross Highfield, Lofton, Dakota, all these guys from the Major League Baseball draft. However, so I don't want to go totally negative, they did lose out on Paul Skeens, the Air Force transfer last week. He decided to go to LSU. Kind of a devastating blow there. There's still a lot of concern about who could be their Friday night guy or their ace. What is your take on losing Skeens, what's on the roster, and what piece could be added in the next 2 weeks before school starts?
Yeah, I think it's a good summation there, Bo. I mean, yeah, the Skeens thing's it's huge because you're Mississippi State, and you really need a guy like that. I mean, you need that bell cow guy, and he was the guy that was the most coveted dual position guy in the country, and so over 100 schools contacted the guy and extended offers, and you make the final three, and that, and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee at the truck stop. It's like if you don't get them, it doesn't matter how well you've recruited them, and not only that now, but not only do you not get him, you got to deal with him because now he's in your division at LSU. And so, yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, it's never anybody's fault, but the reality of the situation is LSU is a whole lot closer to being an Omaha contender next year than Mississippi State is. People don't want to hear that, but it's the reality of it. I mean, State finished 7th in the West last year, and LSU was in a road regional, but arguably should have won that thing, but they didn't. But I'm sure that's the selling point from Jay Johnson. It's like, hey, we're going to Omaha, and you're the missing piece, and now State's got to pivot. And obviously there's not going to be anybody of Skeens' talent still available in the portal at this late date. Now, State's got to find a guy that can provide some competition on the weekend. Of course, you get Casey Hunt back, and that's big, and he's healthy. So hopefully he can go out there and be a guy that can compete. But, the reality of it is State does bring the recruiting class with one exception. That ends up being a number 4 recruiting class in the country. And then you pick up Connor Highshack a few days ago, a guy that provides some competition, could be a left fielder, could be a depth guy on the infield, got to hit 12 jacks last year and hit 290. So I like what State's done, but and I think they've got some very intriguing pieces. But you'd really like to get another weekend guy to provide some competition. You really need to get an experienced guy here in these last couple of weeks to get this thing finished up.
Okay, what's the best case scenario? I know you can't give a name. How about this? Do you believe that there is at least a Saturday/Sunday guy still in the portal that Lamonis and Foxhall could land?
Yeah, I think there is that guy. But I think it's one of those things now you got to be awfully careful, because are guys still in the portal now because of a lack of opportunity, or is it a health issue, or is it somebody that, it's just making a late decision? There's grad transfer guys that, went through the draft and maybe didn't get what they wanted. Those guys are still a premium on a few of those guys out there. But I don't know that you find a difference maker this late. I think what you've got to do is find somebody that can compete and maybe be a Sunday guy for you. But again, I think State's done extremely well. You just hadn't got that big Power 5 name that really moves the needle. And listen, Scotty DeBrule and R.J. Yeager had a couple of good years here for Mississippi State, and so there's still some value out there. It's just about finding the right individual now.
How did they get here where they were coming off 3 straight College World Series appearances, several super regionals, obviously a national championship? One, they had to go hunt Skeens, but that's going to happen every year, so there's nothing wrong with that. Other programs were doing that. How did they get here maybe talent deficient as far as weekend starters? SEC caliber.
Well, I think that's a good question. And that's one of the things that even last year I kind of asked myself is, how does Mississippi State get in this position? And it's not injuries are part of the game. We know this, right? I mean, you can't project that, but, that was the thing. 2021 Mississippi State had one of the deepest bullpens in the country. And then, last year, probably one of the most shallow bullpens in the country. And that just can't happen at Mississippi State. I mean, you can't, everything goes through cycles. I understand that. But you can't be in a situation where you don't have anybody you can count on. And I think you go back and you look at, like, 2020. Everybody dealt with the same thing, but you couldn't get out and see these guys in person. You couldn't host them on campus. And I think for State, that was really tough because I think they took some guys based on limited evaluation that didn't hit. It just didn't come out for them. And some other programs dealt with that too. But when you begin to compound that with the injury situation, I mean, I think that was a big part of things. But and to be fair too, if we want to, I guess give the full context of all this, I think State didn't work the portal hard enough last year. And I think there was a nostalgia piece. There was the nostalgia piece of it. It's, we won a national championship and bringing everybody back. And, what you always have to do as a coach is you always are looking to add to the top half of your roster and reduce the bottom half of your roster. And I don't think we did that last year. So I think it's a combination of things. But I think some major concerns have been addressed, especially the bullpen and this particular portal class. And I don't think you're ever going to see a situation where Mississippi State's not a buyer or a player in the portal moving forward.
Okay. If you had to, KC Hunt, what's best case scenario for KC Hunt coming back? What best if he has an awesome fall in January? What's the best case scenario for him with Foxhall?
Well, he's healthy again too, and he's had a really good summer. He was in the Cape for a while, and also in the MLB developmental draft group for a while, and has had an exceptional summer. That's kind of like last year. He had a great summer last year and a great fall, and then next thing you know, he gets hurt against Long Beach State, and we're kind of off to the races again. And so I think best case scenario is that KC comes in. Does he compete on Saturday or Sundays? I think he's certainly in the competition to be a weekend starter because this guy has big stuff. I don't think Mississippi State fans have seen what he's capable of because every time he's pitched healthy and effective, he's been in another uniform, right? It's been on the road or a summer. And I had a couple scout friends that say as soon as he got drafted, I had two of my scout friends said, there's no way that kid's going to sign. The number's too high, but also too, he said, this is a guy that could potentially be a top 5 rounder next year with a good season. And so I do think it's big news. And I think there's some State fans who are like, well, we'll just we'll see. And I think it's okay to have measured expectations of KC, but if he can come out there and put it together next year, it really shores up a lot of concern. It really does. It makes you begin to feel like, okay, we're finally getting, what KC Hunt can consistently do. We're getting that in the M over S. And if he can put it together, I think that answers a lot of questions for next year.
Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, Boneyard Podcast on the Yuengling Lager guest line. What is the latest on Chris Parson, the quarterback out of Brentwood, Tennessee, and Mississippi State's recruitment of him?
Yeah, big question there. And so I want to make sure that we set expectations correctly here. We tried to do that on the website last week. Parson was coming in with the family. His mom had never taken the guided tour at Mississippi State. So she came along, and the grandparents that live locally also came along. So it's big. I mean, and it's not a courtesy visit, when you bring everybody like that. So they had a great time. The expectation was that the Parson family would take the trip and then take a few days and kind of figure this thing out. And that's kind of where we are now. We were hoping to get a commitment. We weren't expecting to get one. And here's the thing too, Bo, when it's the quarterback committing, I think State benefits from the big announcement. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if this kid tweets it out at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, you get him. But I think, having the announcement or the big edit video or whatever, I think that's an important part of it because he is such an important recruit in this class. But still feel really confident about him being a Bulldog. I know A&M is lurking a little bit, but I think he's down their board a little bit. I know that Virginia Tech had tried to get in with him a little bit. They already have a quarterback committed in the class. So, he's not going to leave 1-2 quarterback class to go to another one, And so I think things have gone as well as they could go so far for State. But, just like we talked about with Skeens, it doesn't matter how well you recruit them if you don't get them. But I do think State's in in a good position, and I think it's just really a matter of time before he announces for Mississippi State.
So A&M's throwing around money, like crazy people, and that gets people concerned. Will he wait out to see what A&M does?
I don't know if they can
How about
afford
this?
to.
If they lose out on Malachi Nelson, I know he was on campus this weekend, but I know he's committed to Southern Cal and he's a West Coast kid. That could, who knows with that? You don't believe that he's right behind you. You think there's another player, maybe two, before they get to Parson at A&M. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. And I really think at this point, if they're real serious about Parson, they would have already offered. Right now he's just a prospect on the board and a guy they're maintaining a bit of a relationship with. They haven't really gone all in, and that is always a concern with a team like A&M. Not just because of their resources, but because of the fact that Jimbo's a guy that that coached some of Chris Parsons' favorite quarterbacks. He grew up a Florida State fan and thought, oh, I can go play for the same guy that coached Jameis Winston. So that would be a concern. Not just the NIL stuff, but at this point, they're not. I wouldn't say they're a major factor. That's just a potential concern. I think it's important to kind of set the full paradigm here that A&M is a player, but they're not a major player at this point. And if things go south with a couple other guys, they could be.
Okay.
So it's not like Mississippi State's going to get the kid on by default.
Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Rick's Pro Truck. We're visiting with Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, Gene's Page 247 Sports. So what do you think the timeline is on Chris Parson?
It's tough to say because Chris has kind of done things his own way. It's like we always knew that he was going to decommit from Florida State. We just didn't know when. There was a discussion about him going to the Elite 11 and having some big announcement, and he gets out there and really doesn't make an announcement. So he kind of does things where he wants to get it done. But, fall camp's opening up for us, and a lot of people in out-of-state are going to be in school here pretty soon. I would say a week to 10 days. I don't think it lingers into the season. But, who knows? And I think if you're Mike Leach, you want to be patient with the guy, but at the same time, too, you don't have to have a quarterback in this class, but by and large, Mike Leach, it's what he's done historically is you take at least one quarterback in the class. And so I don't think Mike's interested in going out there and just go getting a guy to get a guy. So they'll wait him out and make him feel like a priority. And I think Leach is a big part of this with Chris. I think there is a lot of intrigue on the part of Chris Parson that he doesn't want to be labeled like the athletic quarterback. He wants to be labeled a quarterback. And we'll see what kind of ceiling he has, but Mike Leach has made a real positive impression on him. And I think there's always that celebrity factor part of it too. It's like, this is Mike Leach. This is a guy that's routinely put guys in the league and put up some huge numbers. And so I think that is a big factor for State because I think there's some doors open for Mississippi State that wouldn't ordinarily be open. Even when you got Dan Mullen and Jim Moorhead here, you didn't routinely have guys of Chris Parsons' ability taking multiple trips to Mississippi State and talking about making a defection from a Power 5 school to Mississippi State. So you just got to go close the deal. No points for second place.
What is he close to his? Do you know? Is he close to his grandparents? That's a strong relationship. So. Okay.
Yeah, very much so. And that's a big drawing card too. Of course, there are some cousins and people like that here too. And so, and I think bringing the grandparents last weekend was significant. It wasn't just, okay, they're in town, let's all go have some fun. And I think Chris is a guy that values family and wants to share the experience with his family. And he spent a lot of time in Starkville over the years. And so it's not like, all this is new to him, but it's kind of new to the grandparents. And I think the fact that they came along, really shows that this wasn't, a courtesy visit type situation. And I think they're going to get him. I really do. At this point, I'd be surprised if they don't.
Is he, and there's nothing wrong with this, is he best available or is Leach and Hollings, is it Hollingshead?
Yes.
And all that group on the offensive side of the football, this is something that they are focused on shifting away from just a pure passer and adding a little bit of, some athletic ability and running ability at the quarterback position, Steve.
I think we're seeing a bit of a shift. And I think some of it's because you see what Cliff Kingsbury has done in the NFL. And you see what Lincoln Riley has done. Those guys obviously in the Mike Leach tree. But you also look at what State's doing for 2024. I mean, you offer Trey Petty here at Starkville High School, and he and Chris Parson, very similar quarterbacks. So it's like you're kind of trending more towards that athletic quarterback that can tuck it and go. Maybe you're not going to do a lot of design quarterback runs with them, but you're not going to get a guy that's a statue back there. And I think what we're seeing is maybe some innovation in the quarterback evaluation at Mississippi State. I think Mike Leach is just kind of maybe tweaking some things a little bit to kind of make that offense a little more dynamic. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Oh, I think it's something he's going to have to do if he wants to stay 5 or 6 years, which I think Mississippi State fans should, be rallying around that. Do you think he's actually talked to Cliff Kingsbury or Lincoln Riley about this, or is this just something that he has decided from observing Kyler Murray and others that this is the direction he needs to go now because of the way the game is played?
I don't know if I could really handicap that, but I believe it's probably a combination of both. Mike is really close with those guys. It's not like it's just, kind of a passing thing. I mean, I've talked to him before about Cliff Kingsbury, and he said there's a lot of times they talk in the off season just, about tweaking plays and route combinations and things like that. And so they talk shop a lot. It's not just, hey, how are you doing? Good luck on Sunday type deal. And so, and I think Mike is a very intelligent guy, as you know. And I think a lot of it is like, hey, this is the way I've always done it. And these guys know my system, and then they're doing this, and both of them are having some success for their, personnel. And so I think it's probably a combination of both. But, I've had a lot of people in the past say, Mike's just kind of stuck in his ways. And, after spending some time with Leach himself watching film, I just don't believe that's the case at all. I think Mike wants to win as much as anybody does, and I think he simply sees this as a way to make this offense more potent and to obviously win more football games.
All right. What's the guy's name, the defensive back that Mississippi State is hunting but also received a Texas A&M offer recently? Or do I have that wrong?
I'm not exactly sure who you're referring to.
Okay. I may have I'm trying to follow texts and so on. All right, let me ask you this. So what do you think of Tobias Hinton out of Hattiesburg? And is he going to be a linebacker, or is he going to end up as an edge rusher? And then what do you think of him as far as talent and prospect?
I don't think he has maybe the length to be the prototypical defensive end. I think he stays at linebacker. And what's interesting about him, too, is he rarely played in the two-point stance last year at Hattiesburg High. But the guy has a lot of athleticism. And when I saw him in camp, like he tests really well. The kid runs exceptionally well, good straight line foot speed. Didn't play exceptionally well in camp, but that didn't surprise me too much because he hadn't had to do it a lot in high school. Now, Tony Vance is going to play him as a traditional linebacker this year, which not only I think will be good for their team, but also good for his future. And so when you've got a guy like him in your state with that raw athleticism and that great foot speed, and he's a kid that already knows where the weight room is, and so I don't think there's any question this guy's going to be a linebacker. Right? My thing is he a Sam? Is he a Willie guy? Where's he going to play? But I think you take a guy like him and you feel really good about the fact that you got him. And I think that's a guy that probably maybe he needs a redshirt year to kind of learn the nuances of the position. But, I'm ready to go see him play. I'll tell you that. I'll be headed down to see him here probably in the next first half of the season. But I want to see the kid play linebacker because he's got the raw materials to be a very good player in the Southeastern Conference.
All right, Steve Robertson on the Yuengling Lager guest line. I guess somebody was trying to say that Isaac Smith from Itawamba, maybe he had received an A&M offer, but I'm looking at your 247 sports site. It doesn't look like he has, but who knows? I mean, offers are flying around everywhere. Have you heard anything on that, Steve?
Well, A&M has been on him the whole time. I mean, so they've already talked to him about taking an official visit. So they're not a new suitor by any stretch.
Got it.
George has talked to him about a visit. I mean, Isaac Smith is a dude. And at the very beginning of the year, when we first started watching film for this talent cycle, he's a guy that immediately jumped to the top of my list. I mean, and I think him and Get Perkins are phenomenal. And I think you could have either one of those guys as the number one player in the state, and you couldn't be wrong. You know what I'm saying? They're both that talented. But Isaac Smith is a natural safety. I think that this is a guy that understands how things work. He gets off the hash really well. Big physical player. He's another guy I can't wait to go see play in person. But I think Mississippi State has really, really made an impression on he and his family. And at the beginning of this process, all the talk out of Fulton was, State's working hard, but they're not going to have a shot to get the kid. And I don't know what's happened with the kid in Ole Miss, but they're just not really recruiting him right now. And it's been that way now for a couple months. And things happen, right? I mean, sometimes we have different evaluations, but I think right now Isaac Smith's probably going to be a Bulldog, if I had to call it today. I think based on what I've heard and what I've seen here in the last few weeks, I feel pretty confident about where Mississippi State stands with him. But this is a guy, too, that State's going to have to continue to recruit because this guy has an NFL potential. And I think when you look at he and Perkins both, it's easy to pick those guys out of a lineup. They look like SEC players already. And so I think Smith's a guy that you got to continue to recruit, but I like how they've handled things so far.
When does Mississippi State's practice start?
Friday.
Okay. All right. Friday it is. Does Leach let y'all go to any of the practices? How does that work?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I think Mike would let us call some plays. I mean, honestly, Mike loves having us out there. And that's one thing that we were told when he first got hired is, he wants things to be open. And Mike likes teaching too. Mike, when you watch him out there and you watch him, he's not putting us through drills or anything, but yeah, Mike likes it to be open for the media. He likes the coverage, and he likes us to get access. And so I can't wait to get out there. It'll be hot. It'll be fun.
247 Sports, Gene's Page, and the Boneyard Podcast. Thanks, Steve. Steve Robertson on the Yuengling Lager guest line, the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, is brought to you by the delicious gumbo and po' boys, and we'll throw in the prime rib at Highball Eats in Fondren. Robert St. John has put together his greatest hits from his Hattiesburg restaurant, created the menu at Highball Eats in Fondren for lunch and dinner. There's plenty of parking in the back right by the Capri movie theater.